Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arafire and welcome to another episode of Look Out and Shout. And a fairly predictable one this time because we are reviewing Fanstoys FT-30D Viper, their version of a G1 Fireflight or Firefly. So, I hastily got my previous review out of Goose, of their Skydive. I was working my way through this set and Fanstoys decided to throw this one out a bit last minute. We have been waiting a very long time for this. By my recollection, the last figure came out in 2020 and this is now, at least according to the box, a 2024 figure. The box itself is nice. We have the nice standard artwork on the front that we've seen on the previous releases, as well as some biopic on the back of the figure, and at the very bottom the completed set, all 5 of them together in a row, and showing how he's going to look all combined up with the arm, which will be made up of this bot. So, as of recording, July is for the last figure. This is going to be their slingshot, and it will come out with the stand in July. That will be all 5 aerial bots, taking about 5 years to complete, and will be done by then. There is rumours as to how much this is going to cost. We still don't know for sure. The best rumour so far is $400 US. We will see. But if you want to pick this figure up, or any other Fanstoys figure for that matter, I do recommend that you head on to Primetime Toys. Yes, Primetime Toys will help you out with all of your Fanstoys offerings, as well as other Transformers and figures as well. But if you do head on to their website, and I'll put a link in the description below, you can use a couple of codes to get 10% off your first order. First code is WELCOME10, whilst that's still applicable. Failing that, you can also use the code POWERUP10. And that, as I say, will get you 10% off your order. Thank you to Primetime Toys for sending me this figure. I'm very happy with it. Thank you so very much for your continued support. Inside the box comes bagged up instructions and collector's card, as well as the typical Fanstoys polystyrene shell, which inside holds the figure itself, that comes a little bit mistransformed out of the box, so do be wary of that. And also with 2 guns and 2 faces to choose from. One the figure will be wearing, another one will be loose in a bag. Well, it's been a long time to get this figure. Let's get into it, shall we? And there he is in his robot mode. Straight out of the box, it's very much a G1 Fireflight. It's got that, I don't know, kiddish charm to it. I always feel this character has a sense of naivety comes across on that face sculpt. He's holding his one accessory that he comes with, his dual pistol. It looks good, it feels very nice and die-cast, very heavy and weighty, and it's very nicely painted. It does have an air of bland to it. I feel with the legs, they're just solid white and bland, and the same can be said of Goose of Skydive, but I like it for what it is. It's very similar in the upper section to the previous leg releases of Goose and Iceman, the same kind of build on the chest, same build on the arms. The plain bits hanging on the back. I think the legs look a little bit unsightly with the wings just kind of sitting there, but I don't think that's too uncommon when it comes to this character. That's generally where most of the plane sits. It's not all just hanging on the center of the back. It's dotted around the body. But I think the legs just kind of look a little bit gangly with these wings on the side of it. Of course, I remember on the Zeta version, for their combiner, their version of Fireflight, their Firefly, you could pop the legs off. They were on ball joints, so they can come off. You could give it a clean look. I don't think you can do it with this one, or at least if you can't do it, I wouldn't recommend, because you might not get them back on. He does look good though. It's that typical toon articulation or toon appearance with that very nice face sculpt. It really captures it straight off the TV screen, if that's what you're going for. Let's get in for a closer look. So as you can see, again, lovely blue paint on the eyes. The head sculpt is fine, maybe square, basic, but it's fine for what it is. Now, okay, let's talk about these hips. These are going to be, well, these are meant to be blue as I understand it. And this is a message that's come out from Fanstoys saying when Viper comes out, there will be replacement panels to put on this. Now, I watched Bobby Skullface's video and he said the right point. If only they had time to finish this. It's been 5 years on this set. There is no excuse. They rushed to get this figure out in the end. I don't think, whilst it was always a plan to get it out in 2024, from releasing of promotional videos to figure shipping was very short. Such a short space of time. So I wonder why it was all mad rush and panic now to get this figure out But then again, we've had two things missing on a final figure, and it's on everyone, as I understand it, not just a first batch. But they will be sending out replacement parts. But of course, now you have to buy Jester, their last figure, their slingshot, to get the replacement pieces, which, okay, if you're going to buy this, you're probably going to buy Jester. It's just a shame that you kind of have to do that. They had opportunity to correct that. They could have waited another, 2-3 weeks? It wouldn't have hurt if we knew it was coming. But nevertheless, it does look good. I do think, though, the legs just... Again, it's got that short stumpiness of the toe that folds away for alt mode. The wings just kind of sit. And whilst they fold up as best they can, just look a little bit untidy for me round the back. But otherwise, yeah, it's fine. It's just a little bit basic. Now, the gun, I'm not so sold on the groove that the hand holds it in. It's very easy to knock it out. So if I just tried, I didn't give that much pressure at all and it came away. I don't know if it's the shallowness of the groove or the pegs on the palm, but it can easily come out if you just put it into a position and pull your hand away, and if you catch it, it can easily fall. But the gun does split, and it will be dual wielded. Now, okay, this was mentioned in a few other reviews as well. The peg is only on one side to grip into. The other one, the fingers will just sit around the clip of the gun, and he can dual wield. I'm not a fan of that connection though. With the tightness of the elbow and the shoulder as it moves up on hard, very fixed ratchets, it's easy, because this isn't pegged in, this particular gun, for it to kind of hop out of its holster. So yeah, I think it wouldn't have killed them to have another clasping mechanism, or at least find a way to devise it. I like the splitting up feature. And okay, maybe look at it, maybe with that peg on that side, it should be in the other hand, but I don't know. I feel, again, with a bit more time, to use that word again, it could have been done better, it should have been done better. I like the dual wielding effect. It's something that Goose and Iceman have come with, so now Viper does as well, and this is very much with alt mode in mind. But that's what he can do with his really only accessories. Talking of accessory, the only other one he comes with is this face that he came with fresh out of the box. It's a very moody face, which is not bad. This one that he's got on is a more action emoji kind of face. It's more... I don't want to say it's angry and not say it's shouty. This looks like he forgot to take dinner out of the freezer for the evening rather than any kind of war cry or shocked face. It's just a little bit... nothing, I suppose. So in that case, maybe the face that he came with, the more placid one, is arguably the better of the two. But to get them on is quite straightforward. Tilt the head back and you pry the face off from the chin, and you've got the two pegs on the back of the face, quite small pegs that go into the back of the head. And there you go, it's on. I would recommend getting a part separator to do that. I would have liked it if you could get a bit more angle underneath the chin. It can be a little bit difficult, but it pegs in well enough and you haven't got to unscrew the head with a micro screwdriver, so that works okay. Articulation wise, fairly standard with what we've seen so far. Head can look up, can look down like that. Left and right quite stiff on the neck, very stiff some ways. Shoulder out, friction upward, friction outward. Bicep rotation, again friction on the elbow, single joint, and this will come to something I'll talk about in final thoughts. Wrist rotation, individual finger movements, and bend at the knuckle. No waist rotation, no real surprise. Now, I find the hips probably some of the trickiest bit. You can do it, but you get a full 90 out of it, which is nice. And again, lovely sounding ratchet to get a 90 bend at the knee, which is good. Ankle tilt is actually quite good. It is there. I just want a bit more toe tilt. I want a bit more toe stability. I think this is one thing that this figure is lacking. I'll quickly just touch on articulation because, again, I was watching Bobby Skullface's video and I agree with his points. I sort of had a mental note building up of this figure from what I was seeing at the time. This does strike me as a figure that is about 4 or 5 years old in its design. We haven't got double elbows. We haven't got waist rotations. The head articulation is limited. And okay, you know, we got a nice bend at the knee, but he's not going to do the superhero pose very well due to the amount of kibble on him. I feel that this is an older figure, and if you're going to release it under a 2024 banner, it's got to kind of have 2024 bells and whistles. This has obviously been held back because they wanted to get the design right. Design around the frame, I might add, for combined mode rather than a design of this figure. But yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with it in that sense. It doesn't feel what we've been worth the wait for, if you see what I mean. It doesn't feel like, if you're going to take this long for it to have all of the same treatment as a figure that came out in 2019, then what did we wait for? Is this what we're getting come the end of it? It feels a little flat in that sense. Okay, well, I'm going to be a man of my word here. I proclaimed, and I've died on this hill, or at least I will, that when Viper would come out, that he would be lighter and have a less die-cast to plastic ratio than the leg bots for the stability of the combiner. Let's see if I'm right. About time to put the kitchen scales to work. So we are going to put these in good old pounds and ounces, Rule Britannia. Now, I don't expect Maverick to be of a contest for the rest of them. He's very heavy. And to give you a standard, he is 1 pound, 12.3 ounces, if I got that right. So he's going to be the heaviest, and I'm fine with that. Going on to Goose. Goose comes in at 1 pound, 3.2 ounces. And then going on to Iceman. All without guns, by the way, just the figures as they are. Again, 1.32, just to show you that it resets to 0. 1.32. So Goose and Iceman are weighing the same. Viper then, moment of truth. And that doesn't even register at a pound. That is 15.2 ounces. And I'm going to make sure that it's as flush as it can be. Nothing is skimming higher. 1.52. So there we go. I did think that the arm bots would contain less die cast than the leg bots. I didn't know by how much, but I just got the impression for stability that's what they would do. And at least I could say that won't be a hill I die on today. Okay, on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside his leader. Here he is alongside Fanstoys FT-30D Maverick. Love this figure in particular. It kind of still is a standout for the set. When you get Viper alongside them, you kind of forget all of the niggly things, at least I do. When you put them side by them, as I've been doing, they are quite cool, and this is no exception. I do again like how Silverbolt doesn't massively dwarf this set. He's bigger, but not by loads. So yeah, that looks pretty good, and the colour palette is nice here as well, as I'll touch on at the end. Here he is alongside Goose, my previous reviews, and I got him holding the right guns this time at least. Yeah, you do see what I mean around the legs though. The shins on both of these figures just look a little bit empty. Like, I feel they could have some detailing, something to jazz them up. They're just kind of long sticks. Okay, legs are there to hold the figure, but it just looks a little unimaginative. At least for the upper body on both of them. They've got some detailing going on. You've got more translucent cells within on Goose, and you've got some nice white detailing here on Viper. But yeah, you can see maybe that these two could have been made circa 2019 or 2020. They look like they are from the same time, with little advancements being made, and maybe that's when that set should have been finished by. Maybe that's why they look no different. And here he is alongside Iceman. Now I'll quickly touch on the colouring. This, and the same with Goose, and actually the same with Maverick, is quite a metallic red, quite a cherry red, quite a dull red, and of course red is going to be most of this guy's feature, particularly in alt mode. I am glad that they've seemed to have gone for a brighter red on Viper and a more metallic red on the other figures, because yes, it makes up so much of Viper's bodywork. If he was just that metallic red colour, I think he would have looked very dull. That red paint does kind of sell that figure. And you put it alongside the other figures, you notice it more. He just stands out that shade or two more. So yeah, it looks good. Again, following a very similar design. You look at the arms, you look at the shoulders. There's not a lot in it. And I can see Jester going much the same way. Very hard to get them all in the same shot, but there they all are. They do look really good when you get them together. I love that build, that kind of wide, stocky build. Of course, that wideness is a problem. It's not just the width of, the shoulders on Maverick. It's the wings, it's the back kibble, that when you kind of put them in formation, they start to bounce off each other a bit. but they do look really good. Again, I said it, I might not even combine this set. I will do just to see what it's like, but I think they look so good as individual robots. And to pick on my typical Masterpiece car bot, here he is alongside Takara's Wheeljack. He does dwarf him as you'd expect him to, and it's the same in my previous reviews of the other figures. Yeah, that's how he looks. He's a good half the size bigger. The aerial bots were bigger, of course. So that's how he looks alongside one of his comrades. Okay, let's get this guy off to the danger zone, shall we? And here he is in his vehicle mode, and that is a very red jet. It's always a touch uninspiring, I think. When you look at Fireflight, he is just a red, and he's tarted as a red reconnaissance jet, which I don't know if you were going to be reconnaissance, surveillance, stealth. Would you be a bright red jet? Nevertheless, it's very true to the design. It does come across very basic. I think, and you'll see this more in a minute, the fuselage of the aircraft is very narrow. It's very thin, it's very slender. First thing that hits you about this is the paint is lovely. I love the fact that this is a very bright red. It's not a metallic red, which other companies are very guilty of. Metallic can look nice, but I've said before, metallic red can be a very cherry red, a very dull red. This is fairly reflective, and of course it's got that typical Fanstoys paint to it. The same can be said for the wings and the accents of the designs on the edge here. The blue, the yellow stands out very nicely, particularly against the white background of the wings. It pops all the more. But there's just a few things about it that just come across very bland, very basic. Now, is this a G1 straight off the cartoon Fireflight? Absolutely. You're probably not going to find a closer representation of it. The transformation was okay. I did pretty much all of it without looking at the instructions. It follows a very similar path to the previous leg bots that have been released, Goose and Iceman, Skydive and Air Raid. So there's a lot of similarities. The upper body is almost identical as to how it transforms. The legs are a little bit different. It's clever. I wouldn't say it's groundbreaking. It's very similar to the others. You can see a similar pattern. It's a jet that's hanging off the back of him, and he's going to more or less become a jet with the kibble from the back of robot mode forming it to make a jet. Let's get in for a closer look. So if I pick him up, the heft is definitely here. He's very die-cast orientated. He's a very large figure. The underside clears up quite well. I don't really like where the waist goes, where it sits. I think that's been done right. At least looking at some videos, it folds back from what would be here in robot mode, folds back and sits halfway down the legs. Not overly tidy, but I guess it's okay. The guns tab in. It's the guns that split away from the dual guns in robot mode, a sort of a double barrel gun, become two single pistols to go underside of the wings. But it clears up nice enough. It's got that nice colour to it. I wish the centre spine wasn't there. I guess it's maybe reminiscent to the original design, but that centre spine being a black mark and not a solid red all the way through does stand out. There's things I'll get to in comparison as well. Just things about it that just come across a bit empty. I'll show you now, but I'll show you again for comparison. These are supposed to be grids at the front here, and I don't know if you'll see, but they're just solid red. The back of the engines here, they're just solid red. It just comes across lacking in definition, lacking in detail, and it doesn't wow me. I think the weight is nice, the paint is nice, but that's probably where the praise of it ends. Better if I get the landing gear out. You can see he stands quite well. I will say the rear landing wheels are a little bit stiff to get them out. You have to get them out with some kind of spludger, which does work. It won't untab anything. I will say actually tabbing in is quite good. Once you get everything in, it locks in quite well. I haven't had anything pop out of place. But yeah, it's just somewhat unimaginative, I suppose. His only other thing that he can do is open the cockpit, and you get a bit of definition for what's inside the cockpit. Some detailing on the governs you won't necessarily see. There's not too much to say. And I get that it's a jet. What do you really do with a jet? This is the other thing you can do with him, and it's actually promoted to do this, that you can flip the wings up, and I don't know if that's completely accurate to an actual jet. I think it says on the box he's a Phantom type jet. I don't know this particular plane at all, so I don't know if that's correct or not. It does give it a bit more of a fierce look. I do prefer it like that. Comes across a bit more striking. But yeah, it's probably about as much as you can do. You can put down a landing gear, you can open the cockpit, you can flick up the wings, and you can stick the guns on underneath. That's about as much as you can do with accessories or any other playable features on this figure. Okay, on to some comparisons. Here he is alongside his compatriot. This is Zeta Toys Firefly, their version of a G1 Fireflight from their Kronos Combiner set. Now, we do know this is going to be the comparison to kind of draw against because there isn't any other real offerings on the market. Now, this is going to be quite telling for me. This figure came out, I think, something like 6 years ago. At least. It certainly feels that kind of time. We're talking about greater than 5 years, probably even more. I have it in my head 2018, maybe even 2017. So has there been significant advancements? All right. This set was made with a combiner mode in mind. The mode of all 5 of these bots from Zeta was to have an established combiner, then to have a good looking jet mode. The robot mode was the mode that was sacrificed clearly from this set. Fine, that's just a route they went down, that's what they decided to do. But things like now, getting side by side and the advancements of time and the more price for unit, how much this would cost if you would buy it separately, although I got it in a box set, but you would pay for that versus what you're paying for this Fanstoys offering. But there's things, like I said, this has got detailing on the vents on the side. The cockpit is clear, that is smoky painted black. But I said around the engines as well, solid red at the back, and this has got kind of a grey accent. It actually looks like an engine. Even if I get the wings, and if I can get them in a bit closer, you can see there's gubbins, there's details. It hasn't got that black spine down the middle of it. And it just looks like a real world jet, which I feel that this figure is sufficiently lacking. It's gone for that G1 off the screen. Yes, it is accurate, but if you want to get a realistic Earth vehicle mode, you're looking at Zeta for jet mode. I don't know if people wanted to have multiple versions of the kit, but I would say for at least for Fireflight, I don't think necessarily Viper does much to outshine the Zeta offering, apart from, say, the paint. I think the paint pops more. This can come across that dull red. I will say, and I should have said this at the start, this was the metallic paint edition. I will say that. It was a secondary run that Zeta Toys came out with. But you can see why I didn't want the Fanstoys offering to be the same as this. I didn't want that deadness of colour that this possibly has, and Fanstoys have steered away from. I do like it. I do like the jet mode for what it is, but I feel for the time that's gone past that, and how long this has been out, that Fanstoys should have blown Zeta out of the water with this one. Given the time that's elapsed, they could have done better. Here he is alongside Fanstoys Iceman in their jet modes. Looks really cool size by side. It is the size that sells these figures. Whilst you have 2 different builds, and kind of gone over my somewhat disappointments with this figure, but when you get them together in flying side by side, it's a lovely size, it's a lovely scale. It's not a new scale, of course, it's Seeker mold, it's Seeker type, a standard that's been set for some time, but you see that paint, you can see that flare that these bots have, and yeah, they look really cool together. Here he is alongside Fanstoys Goose, their version of Skydive. I really do like this figure as a jet mode, and ironically putting it against the red and more vibrant colour of Viper makes me appreciate this one more. I just feel that the build, the finish, this feels more complete. I think that's the only word I can come up with. I really like Goose compared to Viper. Again, I like the size, and I don't think the camera picks it up very well, but the colour does pop more on Viper. The red, when you look at it from the light box, just looking into it, it is quite nice. The blue does pop very nicely. I don't know if that comes across on camera, but yeah, it's a nice set, and that's how they look together. And alongside the big boy Silverbolt, I haven't pulled his landing gear out. Yeah, again, looks very, very nice, and gives you an idea of how big Viper is, because this guy's just huge. But that's how they look together. It does look cool when you get the whole set together. And it's incredibly squidged up, but it's the best I can do. Here they are together. I can't tell you the size of these guys. They are brilliant, brilliant jets. It's going to look a great set, 5 of them in formation when it's done. I think just looking at them now, it just comes across a little bit lacking. I think that's the only thing I could say. Maybe because I've had these three in my collection so much longer, I've really got used to them. I really do like these guys. I really do like the bot modes. I really do like their alt modes. Viper just doesn't have that panache. That something is missing. When you put them together, they do look great. They look great in robot mode. They look great in alt mode together. So as a set of 5, you're not going to notice. But for such a long period of time, it does stand out. And a bit different, but still of an aerial theme. Here he is alongside Open and Play's Big Spring in helicopter mode. Still masterpiece, different companies, different aesthetics, different builds, all the rest of it. But that's how they look together. I would expect Springer to be bigger, if I'm honest, and if this was the Fanstoys Apache version, then maybe it would be, but that's the only Springer I've got in my collection. That's how they look side by side. And alongside a typical masterpiece car bot for scale, here he is alongside Takara's version of Smokescreen. No real contest here, not really keeping in scale, but that just gives you a general idea of the size of this jet. So what are my final views on Randy Viper? Well, I keep thinking, has it been worth the wait? Has it been worth the wait this long? A lot of my views on it are echoed in Bobby Skullface's video, who got his video out quicker than mine. I was watching his video, watching the review of this figure done by Bobby, and I thought, yep, that's more or less my first impressions as well. Getting it in hand, okay, it looks very pretty, and it does have that Fanstoys characteristic to it. I think what bothers me is the fact that it hasn't got modern day advancements. I think I'm a bit 50-50 on that. I think that it should be better. It should be more in keeping with some of their more frequent releases, more modern releases, and have some of the advancements that they've made on this figure that some of their newer ones have as well. But then would that look out of place with the rest of the set? If they came out, 3 of the 5 came out 4 or 5 years prior to that, and then this one had a bit more bells and whistles than the previous 3, would that look a bit odd? Maybe, but I think we were always going to say, we've waited 4 to 5 years for this figure. Was it worth the wait? Quite frankly, no. I don't think it was. I think the one that startled me the most was comparing it alongside Zeta Toys Firefly. And seeing together, yes, Fanstoys is painted brilliantly, but I just feel like I can't keep using that as a bailout. They're always going to be painted better. It's what Fanstoys does. Like Transart always do great chrome. It looks really pretty. Fans Hobby always do really chunky big bots, not necessarily complicated or overpriced. There's an MO, there's something that they stick to. So Fanstoys is paint, or at least one of their big traits. And getting this figure that I've had in combined form, that I had to blow the dust off a little bit, putting it into jet mode, and I was like, all right, you tell me the difference. Actually, there's things on the Zeta version that I like more. I like the fact it's got coloured in jets. I like the fact that the grids at the front are darker. It gives that more vehicle effect. Yes, they sacrificed the robot mode and they made the other 2 modes as good as they could. Yes, this has more diecast to it. Yes, this looks prettier, but this is at least 6 years younger than this figure, and at least 4 years than the previous offerings from Fanstoys of Goose, Iceman and Maverick, and it just doesn't feel that advanced. I think a fairly minor ticking off point is around the waist as well. We're going to get replacement pieces, and what do? Pop them out, stick them over, unscrew them. We've now got some DIY work to do. It could have been done better. Talking about the figure itself, I like how it looks as much as I like the head sculpt. I think that looks really nice. I like the gun. I'm not wild about the grip of it. I think the ankle tilt is good. The transformation is fine. But again, it's very similar. I saw again in Bobby Skullface's video about it being a intuitive transformation. And I don't know if I fully agree. I respectfully disagree. I think there was a couple of things that felt a bit different, but by and large it was very similar to Goose and Iceman, and that's okay, that's fine. It's just nothing necessarily new. So then I say, okay, well, it's no worse, certainly no worse, But then why did it take so long? And the problem was with the structure, we would assume. Now I am a little bit peacocky, bit pleased that I said that this would be a lighter figure than the leg bots. I didn't necessarily think it would be. When I saw the skeletal frame, I thought, oh, they thought about the frame. Maybe these will all be the same weight. But at least according to the scales that I used, it came out a fair bit less. I just think things as well, I go back to it, the centre spine on the Fanstoys having that black line down the middle of it. Again, that could be very typical, but the Zeta one doesn't. It blends in a bit more on the bodywork. I think some things are stiff, and for some reason plugging in one of these guns is very loose on one of the holes on the underside of the wing. It holds, it hasn't fallen, but it's just a little bit loose. Actually getting the wheels out on the underside is a bit stiff. But I suppose I can't criticise it too much, but I think to myself it's just not worth the wait. And I feel a little bit underwhelmed by it. I feel for a set that I've given Fanstoys a lot of critique for. I've said they need to do this better, they need to design this better, but when they said, right, we're going to be on track, we're going to finish, and it may look great when it's all done, but I feel like if you're going to be silent for so long and then this be your offering, it doesn't instill much. Like, it feels they've cut back to make the combined work, if you see what I mean. If you feel like, has he been sacrificed to have a few more bells and whistles that maybe, say, his Autobot brothers did, Aerialbot brothers did, to make the combined form work? I expected the weight to be lighter because otherwise it won't stand up. But I don't know. It feels to me that it's missing something, and it's a long time to go dormant to produce an average figure. And I think that's the word I'm going to use for this. It is an average figure. Where I feel that when you got Maverick and then you went to Goose and Iceman, they were interesting. They kept your interest. If this was an in-between figure, your interest may wane. So it's all eyes on Jester now. Will Jester be brilliant? He comes with a combined shell, so I guess it doesn't matter. Either way, we'll finish the set. We will combine them. I do like it when they're all together. When they're all lined up in jet mode, when they're all lined up in bot mode, they look very, very good as a set. Again, I may just keep them as a separate set, and I think more of it, I think I will. But in terms of this figure, in terms of Fireflight, I just feel it's just very ho-hum, very normal, very safe. And quite honestly, Fanstoys have done better figures to make us think we should be getting a better figure than this. And based on that, I'm giving this 2.5 for my star badges. It might seem low, but it just feels a bit so-so. It just doesn't feel worth the wait to me. The price is, well, the price is what it is. And I think that's another thing as well. Does this feel like a high-end Fanstoys? Not necessarily. I think there's better offerings. But that's the thing with the combined set. Once you're in, you're kind of in. And you've got to think about that if you're going to go down their Constructicons as well. If you get Scrapper and really like it, and their next offering, which I think is Hook, if you're not a fan of that, what do? You're somewhat in. That's the thing. If you like 3 out of the 5 figures already, you're going to get number 4, and if you've got number 4, you might as well get number 5. But there we go. That is my review, long-awaited review of Fanstoys FT-30D Viper, their version of a G1 Fireflight. I'll put some photos up at the end. Thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you on the next one.